Back to Basics training session. My name is Nihal Samra. I'm the General Counsel and Legal Director here at Kaizen Synergy Law Firm, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's Back to Basics training session. This training session is focused particularly on risk management and risk reporting, and we are going to jump in and show you some of the key features of how to set these up and also what to look at in terms of setting up both your organizational risk register and also your incident reporting. We will start with the incident reporting side first, as it is one of the when I say more important sides, it's around the identifications of incidents and how to report this across your agency. So with it, let's just log in and we will just show you how this actually works. So the two buttons that you can see on the screen here is the incident risk management and the risk register. Now, two parts that I will just mention before jumping into here is that it is important under the organization profile to create two teams called risk management and risk register. And this will ensure that the alerts that are going up, whoever's added to those two teams will actually then receive the alerts if things don't get managed within your risk reporting spaces. So if we jump into the risk management section, and let's just click on this, what you will find is that we have a couple of forms here. The hazard form is really about identifying hazards within the agency. So this includes things like if there is a tear in the carpet, for example, location of the hazard, what was the hazard identified, but an incident hasn't actually been recorded or because there's no actual incident that's actually occurred. But there may be a severity rating that you also need to attach to this. Now, when you rate the specific hazard, depending on what the rating is, will determine where it goes. So if I selected low or medium, it'll head up to my line manager. If I select, for example, high, then what it will do is go directly to the risk management group. So we've got and alert them to say, hey, look, a significant or serious hazard has been identified. The same thing works when we go into, and I'll just go back one step, when we go into the risk management area for the incident management. Now, the incident management section, if I click on add a new entry, and this is a standard form that you can see on your agency incident requirements. You might have a slightly different form if your agency has requested that the fields change. So for example, we did work with Interact, whereby we actually changed their their incident matrix report, and also what states they had listed here. But essentially this form here identifies some of the key reporting under the incident requirements that your agency needs to follow. So what we had was, for example, you'll find that you have automatically your name appears, plus the date and the time, as well as asking you who was involved and where was it involved in, what is the description of the incident as well too. You'll find that there is a space to upload photos and also any other evidence. And this will be activated when the folder for this will be activated when you've saved the form. So you need to save the form and then you'll see a little folder appear. Now, a couple of questions has already come up asking why do we set it up in that way? And the reason being is that once you actually save a form, a number will actually be attached to the incident form. And this is for all entries in the risk management section. We then list what is the incident types. And again, we can customize this for your agency as well too. Now, when we get down to the risk rating, what you'll find, it works in exactly the same way as the hazard report also works as well too. So if we select low or medium, it'll escalate up to my line manager and give us specifically this period of time to actually work on. If it's serious or high, then what it will do is jump and go directly to the risk management group. And what happens here is that you'll find that the risk management group then have a set period of time to actually action this particular risk entry. And we then go in and ask, has debriefing occurred, etc., and what is involved in this. Now, I will just add, and I will just pause it here, because I do want to show you what we have done for an agency called Bellarine Community Health. And I'm just going to log into Bellarine Community Health Sandbox on this. And the reason that we also use Bellarine Community Health as part of this session is because they've also logged it back to a couple of other forms as well too. So if I log into Bellarine Community Health Sandbox, what you will find is the layout is slightly different, but you will find that they've got a number of other forms on here called facilities and maintenance request, feedback form as well too, as well as their incident report. Now, when I go into incident report, and I'll just click on this, and I'm just going to add a new entry to show you a couple of things here. Interestingly, what they've actually got down the bottom of their form, and it's an accordion, whereby we can have a look at the risk classification. So once they complete the form and it gets submitted to the Quality and Compliance Officer, Karen Digby at Bellarine, Karen can go in and have a look at the risk categories or classification. And this is where it starts to link, and I'll show you back to the organization profile. So they're starting to look at, well, is this risk something that we need to log on our organizational profile risk register? And they're starting to collect that information. The other part that they might look at is workflows. So from here, from a case study, what we're seeing here is, let's say there's an incident and I need to update my policy or my procedure. Well, I can essentially go, okay, what's the requirement here? Requirement is we need to update a policy. And so the outcome is update policy document and also compliant with specific legal obligations, for example. Then they can go in, select the person that they wanted to action. They might select Karen from the responsible person and then set the review date. So it's something that just happened today. I want it to start to be reviewed tomorrow, but I really need it done by the end of the week. Once they save this form, this will then get linked directly back to their compliance calendar, and they can then monitor exactly how this is actually traveling. So what you find is on the incident report, it's not just about the incident, the reporting of the incident, it's how do we actually mitigate and what strategies are we putting in place to actually manage this incident directly itself. From here, they can then look at and keep a note of the HSR or OHS comments from their committee works. And also, if they want to notify their board, then they can do this under the board committee section as well too. For the agencies, some agencies need to report to the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. So what we have here is the VIMS integration, and this is the specific part for agencies that need to report directly to VIMS. And if we selected, for example, and this is the departments section, so let's say I selected clinical, what accordions out is the VIMS, the government reporting section of the form. Now, this will actually drag data from the other parts of the system, so you're not having to re-enter data and have this issue of potential errors appearing for re-entry. So some agencies where you do get funding from different departments and you may need to submit information, we can actually set up the form so that this is automatically done. If I select not applicable, it will disappear again. If it's under a different reporting period again or structure, then we can select the different criteria that they need to also report against. And again, from here, just to be clear, it is only this section that I'm scrolling up and down that will get reported to the department not the above section of the incident form that they've collected. The other part that I will just add to this as well too, that's also important, is that you need to be, at times, agencies need to be able to also visually look at, well, how are their reporting traveling? And I need to have a look at some analytics. What you will find on your incident reporting section is the section that says charts. Now, there's a little button that will appear here, and this is some of our test data that we've placed in here. So I can see that Fred has actually lodged 3 forms. I want to know what some of these forms are, what's the breakdown of the forms that we're also looking at, and how long did it take for Fred to actually complete, for how long since Fred lodged the form was this incident completed by, and when we say completed by, when was it action, and also what are the key dates that specific activities was actually done, and we can actually drill down into sites and the like. So there is the capacity, and a lot of agencies will use this particular space for their team leaders. So as people are managing their own teams, and you have reporting obligations to specific teams, then the team leaders want to be able to see these data sets visually to see how is our agency traveling, how is my team traveling, is there specific reports that I can see, what is the requirements I need to meet as well. So from this, what you are able to do very clearly is open this up to specific team leaders to manage their teams more effectively, and also see, well, how are we tracking during this period of time. The last one I wanted to really cover off on this from a risk register, to give you an idea of the works of the risk register, is on the section called risk register. And you can see that here. And this is a template that has been set up, and it is something that Interworks groups have used across their business groups. And essentially, this risk register, the way it works is that we have set this up so that way when you lodge a new risk entry, it works across each of the Interworks business groups. And from here, we can load in specific risk titles. And we've done a lot of work with Dr. Paul and Catherine de Graves, the quality officer at Interworks, and Dr. Paul Schofield, the risk manager at Interworks, which many of you know. And with that, if there are activities that need to occur out of this, then each one of these items is registered here. How this works is that on the once the treatments are loaded into this entry form itself and saved, essentially you've got the risk register profile to then look at. If you needed to action any of these risks, by clicking on edit will allow you to view entries in here and update this information. This is the demo dashboard that I'm showing you here. Keep in mind that any changes that you make will also appear in the audit logs for you to go back and have a look as well too. If you needed to actually print this out for a board report, then by simply clicking on board report will allow you to generate automatically any of the reports. Now, let's say it was my first board report, so I'm going to go back to January 1st, and I want it to the end of this month as well too. So I'm going to select today's date, for example, and I'm then going to select change dates. What I can do is then generate a board report that is automatic for you to view, and it will give you a summary of this information. And the more recent changes that we have made is for the summary table that appears here, and then a list of all of the high risks will appear at the end of it. And this actually covers specifically all of the risks that are on the high risks that are directly on the risk register itself. And you can do that by essentially managing it directly from these dates and fields here. There is a question I can see that has come up of, yes, you can actually open up the board reports on this. And if you wanted to actually have a look at the specific entries, then you can simply click on the actual risk entry, and that will actually take you directly into this board report itself for you to be able to view. And a lot of agencies may have been told by Catherine may actually utilize this within their board reporting sections as well. So essentially what you are seeing is essentially from here, 2 specific areas to manage all of your risk incidents, hazards under the risk management section, and also under the risk register for your organizational wide risks. Now, someone has just asked, what happens if we don't want people just adding entries into the risk register? This is actually controlled by the organization profile. So generally this section is only open to key execs within each of your groups. So if I didn't want all staff, let's say Fred, to be able to view, and I'm just to have our demonstration here, being Fred Flintstone here. So if I didn't want Fred to be able to view the risk register button, I can simply go into the organization profile. Let me show you how I did this. I'm about to do this. I can go into the organization profile section. I can click on groups and teams, and I can go into this section here. What I am going to do is click out Fred from this. And when I refresh the screen, you can see now that Fred does not have access to the risk register. And it's as simple as that. So it allows me to actually control who has access to the organizational wide risk register. It's not just simply a free-for-all for people to be able to access. Now you are able to essentially go in and actually have a look at all the risk registers. We will be revisiting these, of course, at another time as we move through this for your agencies. We will be reaching out to everyone this week to actually go through the incident management and the risk register. Make sure that some of these functions that you can see, and if you can't see things like the graph, so if you're wanting to have a look at other templates that other agencies are using and see what other agencies have done, we can open up different sandboxes for you to be able to jump in and have a look at the full scope of different risk management and risk reporting. As I mentioned, this was the introductory session to risk management and incident reporting. We will be running these sessions over again in the upcoming weeks and extending the back to basics training sessions on this as well too. As I mentioned, Ruby and Lynette will be reaching out to all attendees today. If you do have any questions, by all means, please, we will open up the phone lines and question lines now. But in the meantime, if you are listening to this webinar during our recording, then by all means, please reach out to us if you do have any questions on 1300 360 360 or email us at support@gemba360.com.